This video is a response to a very popular claim these days, that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was justified because the United States meddled in Ukraine's politics. Let's get one thing clear, even if the US had meddled, that still would not justify an invasion. But here's the kicker, there is no evidence that the United States installed a puppet government in Ukraine. Russia, on the other hand, has been meddling for decades. Let's rewind to 2004. After being prime minister for a couple years, Viktor Yanukovych decided to run for president. He did so with the heavy support from Russia and the incumbent government of Ukraine. His opponent, Yushchenko, was literally poisoned and disfigured for life by pro-Russian forces. On election day, Yanukovych won through voter suppression and intimidation, but Ukrainians flooded the streets in what was known as the Orange Revolution. And through the constitutional process, the Supreme Court overturned the results.
Meanwhile, overseas in Ukraine today, anti-government demonstrators finally had something to celebrate. The parliament voted to disband the government of the candidate who has been declared the winner of the disputed presidential election.
Yushchenko became president.
Opposition leader Viktor Yushchenko joined his supporters in a victory celebration early this morning. With most votes counted, the Western-leaning economist leads by an insurmountable 9 percentage points.
This set the tone for Ukrainian politics. The people consistently demand closer ties with Europe, and Russia consistently tries to stop them through propaganda, through corruption, and violence. By 2010, Yushchenko's popularity had collapsed, and due to the infighting between Yushchenko and the prime minister at the time, Yanukovych returned to prominence. He promised balanced relations and closer ties with the EU, but once in office, he jailed his political opponents, cracked down on the press, and entrenched corruption. Fast forward to 2013, Ukraine's parliament had approved an agreement with the EU. This would be a trade agreement with the EU and visa-free travel inside of EU member countries. This is the exact thing that Yanukovych ran in support of just a few years earlier, and it was what the Ukrainian people voted for. At the last minute, Yanukovych caved to Russian pressure and backed out, and that betrayal sparked the Euromaidan protests. The result was deadly crackdowns, dozens of protesters killed, and in one final move of blatant corruption, Yanukovych fled to Russia. Here's the key point. Ukrainians were not being manipulated by the United States. They were demanding exactly what they had voted for just a few years earlier, closer ties with Europe. Some people point to US politicians like John McCain visiting Kiev during the protests. John McCain did give a speech at Euromaidan. He said,
"People of Ukraine, this is your moment. This is about you, no one else. This is about the future you want for your country. This is about the future you deserve. A future in Europe, a future of peace, good relations with all of your neighbors. The free world is with you. America is with you. I am with you. And the destiny you seek lies in Europe. Ukraine will make Europe better, and Europe will make Ukraine better."
Thank you, thank you.
It is worth pointing out that at this point, people were already in the streets demanding the very EU deal that Parliament had passed. It's not meddling, that's solidarity. There is also a leaked phone call between two United States government officials, and yes, they did discuss preferences for opposition leaders, but none of those leaders actually got the jobs. And if the United States had meddled in pushing for preferred opposition leaders, they did a terrible job. What kind of CIA plot is this? So the evidence of American meddling simply does not hold up. But meanwhile, Russian meddling is overwhelming. They poisoned political opponents, they bribed, and they engaged in blatant propaganda. Now let's talk NATO. Yes, NATO has expanded since 1991, but expansion was not forced, it was requested. The problem with NATO is not that it expanded too fast, it's that it didn't expand fast enough. This is not my opinion, it is the opinion of the countries that beg to be let in. There are no examples of states being coerced into NATO, but there are countless examples of states pleading for membership as protection against Russia. Let's ask Finland. Finland was strictly neutral from 1948 up until 2023. During that time period, was the United States meddling in their politics? Were they economically strong-arming them? Were they cooing the Finnish government? Finns themselves will criticize US power, but they overwhelmingly prefer American hegemony over Russian domination. That is why they joined. It's not coercion, it's a choice. This very process is played out over and over again with Finland, Georgia, Ukraine, Turkey, Estonia, Poland, Slovenia, etc. Some argue from realism. This is the idea that great powers have spheres of influence, and smaller states such as Ukraine must accept subordination. But history proves otherwise. Take Poland and Ukraine. In 1991, Poland was the first to recognize Ukraine's independence. And by 1992, they had settled all of their disputes, they committed to minority rights in their own borders, and they aligned themselves with Europe. And today, Poland is one of Ukraine's strongest allies. Realism says that they should have fought each other for territory. Instead, they chose cooperation. There are hundreds of examples of this. For one more, we can look at Henry Kissinger's assertion that the United States would be improper in pushing for the collapse of the Soviet Union. He famously wrote that the Soviet Union would be around for hundreds of years. And spoiler, it was not. So what is at stake? If Ukraine laid down its weapons today, there would be no more Ukraine. It would be annexed by Russia. But if Russia laid down its weapons, we would go back to pre-2014 borders, Russia would enter EU and NATO, and there would be peace. That is the difference. Some would call the current position on the battlefield a stalemate. And this is a term for people who do not understand war and also do not play chess. With the right weapons and intelligence, the battlefield can change overnight. And Ukrainians are already doing the hard part, which is fighting, bleeding, and dying. And that's why the United States must keep supporting Ukraine. Not with boots on the ground, but with the weapons and intelligence they need to win. The goal should be to make Russia's invasion fail so badly that it becomes their last war. So to recap, there was no CIA plot. There was no American puppet. There are just Ukrainians, again and again, demanding their own future. And our role should be to make sure that Russia loses so decisively that the message is clear. Ukraine will be free. If you'd like to read the full written version of this, it is up on Substack, and it is longer than the script that we used for this video. I would also encourage you to watch the documentary 20 Days in Mariupol, or really any of Chernov's reporting over the last few years, or any of the work he's doing on his website. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and remember, economics is about people.